The Amenities of Shopping by Alfred H. Miles. If there is one thing I do dislike, it is to go into a draper's shop. To my mind, it is not a man's business at all. It is one essentially feminine. I have never been able to reconcile myself to the troublesome formalities one has to go through in these marts of female finery. There seems to be no such thing as to pop inside for a trifling article, lay down your money for it, and get away again. No, the system of trade pursued at such establishments is undoubtedly to get you to sit down, with leisure to look about you, and coax you into buying things you don't want. Years ago, when I was living in lonely lodgings, I had occasion one Saturday night to slip into the nearest draper's shop for some pins. "I only want a farthing's worth of pins," I observed, apologetically, to the bald-headed shopwalker who pounced down upon me. "Please to step this way." To my astonishment, he marched me to the extreme end of the shop, thence through an opening in the side wall, past another long double row of dames and damsels of all sorts and sizes making purchases, and finally referred me to a young lady whose special function in life seemed to consist in selling pins to adventurous young gentlemen like myself. She was an extremely good-looking young lady too, and I felt considerably embarrassed at the insignificance of my purchase. "And the next thing, please?" she asked, during the wrapping-up process. I informed her, as politely as I could, that I did not require anything more. "Gloves, handkerchiefs, collars, shirts, neckties." "No thank you," I returned. "I only came in for the pins." But I was not to be let off so easily. Utterly ignoring the humble penny that I had laid down on the counter, she showed me samples of almost everything in the shop suitable for male wear. Blushing to the roots of my hair, I implored her to spare herself further trouble, as my wardrobe was already extensive. Then she showed me a sample silk umbrella. I was unwilling to rush away abruptly from the presence of such a charming young lady, but she provoked me to it. Indeed, I was only prevented from carrying out my design by my failure to discern the hole in the wall through which I had been inveigled into that department. "If you would be so good as to give me my change," I stammered out, feeling heartily ashamed at the thought of wanting the change at all. "Certainly, sir." Then she proceeded to make out the bill. "Oh, never mind about the bill," I said. "I'm rather in a hurry." Of this appeal she took no notice. "Sign, please," she said to the young lady at her elbow. "Pins, 1 farthing," she added to my utter confusion. The second young lady made a wild flourish over the bill with her pencil and turned away. My fair tormentor slowly wrapped my penny in the bill, screwed up the hole inside a large wooden ball, jerked a dangling cord at her elbow, then stood looking me straight in the face as the ball went rolling along a set of tramway lines over our heads to the other end of the shop. That was the most melancholy game at skittles I ever took part in. It seemed an age before the ball came back to us, whereupon the young lady took out the bill and my change, a halfpenny. "We haven't a farthing in the place," she said innocently. "What else will you take for it?" "Oh, it doesn't matter at all," I returned, anxious only to rush away from the spot, which I did. It was a good quarter of an hour before I gained the street. During that interval, I strayed into the carpet department, upset an old lady, fell sprawling over a chair, rushed into the arms of the shopwalker, knocked down a huge stack of flannels, trod on some unfortunate young fellow's corn, making him howl with pain, and last, not least, ran foul of a perambulator laden with a baby and the usual Saturday night's marketing in the doorway. I entered that shop full of hope and promise. I left it a melancholy man. Though not quite so exciting as the foregoing, there is an intimate connection between that incident and the one I shall now dwell upon. Let me tell the tale as I told it to my wife. The other day I brought home a neat little Japanese basket, a mere knick-knack costing only 2d. "Oh, how pretty!" exclaimed my wife. "Wherever did you get this?" "I bought it at a large shop in Regent Street," I answered, "but it cost me a great deal of trouble to get it." Pressed for particulars, I continued. I was amusing myself by looking at the shops, when I saw a lot of these little Japanese baskets in the corner of a large window, plainly marked 2d each. So I stepped inside to buy one. The door was promptly opened for me by a black boy, resplendent in gold-faced livery. He made me a profound salaam as a gentleman of aristocratic bearing came forward to meet me. "And what may I have the pleasure of showing you?" he inquired. "Oh," I returned, not without some misgivings, "I only want one of those little Japanese baskets which you have in one corner of the window, marked, I believe, 2d each." "Certainly, sir. Will you be so kind as to step into this department?" he said. Meekly I followed him through long avenues of silks, damasks, brocades, and other costly examples of oriental luxury in all the tints of the rainbow. I was beginning to feel uncomfortable at the thought of causing him so much trouble, when he paused at the entrance to another department and called out, "Japanese baskets, please." Then turning to me, he said, "If you will be good enough to step forward, they will be most happy to serve you." I did so and found myself on the threshold of an Eastern bazaar. Another nobleman now took me in hand. "And what may I have the pleasure?" he began, making a courteous bow. "I only want one of those little Japanese baskets which you have in a corner of your window, marked, I believe, 2d each, or possibly they may be 2 shillings. I said in a shaky voice. "No, sir, quite right, they are 2d each," he replied, to my great relief, for I had begun to suspect they might be 2 guineas. "Will you do me the favor to step this way?" While following at his side, I asked myself whether, at the end of my travels, I should ever be able to find my way back again. So bewildering were the ramifications through which we passed. Presently he handed me over to another nobleman, who, having learned my pleasure, which by this time had developed rather painful tendencies, graciously escorted me to the further end of a long counter and begged me to take a chair. A stylishly dressed young lady sailed towards us behind the counter. "I shall feel extremely obliged," said the nobleman to her, "if you will be so good as to request Miss W. to step down and serve this gentleman." "Yes, sir," answered the young lady, as she vanished somewhere behind me, for my eyes were now following the retreating figure of the nobleman. After a little while I heard a pattering of feet, and looking round, beheld some tokens of a young lady descending a spiral staircase. She was behind the counter the next moment, and then I made a discovery. It was the same young lady who had served me with the farthing's worth of pins years before. I recognized her at once, and I suspect the recognition was mutual. But of course, she never betrayed the least emotion. "And what article may I have the pleasure to serve you with?" she asked. The still small voice of a duchess. There was a gulping sensation in my throat as I answered, "You have, I believe, in one corner of one of your windows a number of little Japanese baskets, marked, if my eyes did not deceive me, 2d each." The graceful nod of her head was reassuring. "I should be very glad to become the possessor of one of those articles." "Certainly, sir, I'll bring it to you," she answered. "Oh, thank you," I returned, delighted at the prospect, and so she departed on her errand of mercy. Whether, by the rules of the establishment, it was necessary for her to obtain a written permission from each of those 3 noblemen to pass over their territory and invade the shop window, or whether she lost herself in the numerous windings and turnings through which I had been conducted in perfect safety, I cannot say. I only know that she was gone a very long time. But when at last she made her reappearance with one of those little Japanese baskets in her hand, and beaming with smiles, I felt I owed her an everlasting debt of gratitude. She did not ask me if there was any other article she could have the pleasure of showing me. She had asked me that before, and she remembered that I was proof against her persuasiveness. The fair creature simply made a movement towards the spiral staircase, as I thought, to fetch down a witness to the important transaction, until my eyes rested on some tissue paper. "Pray don't stay to wrap it up," I exclaimed. "My pockets are ample, and my thanks were profuse." Seizing the coveted treasure, I laid my 2d down on the counter and walked straight forward in a contrary direction to that by which I had entered, gladdened by the prospect that I was making direct for the street. If anyone had arrested my progress for the sake of further formalities, I should unquestionably have knocked them down. But everyone must have seen the glare of defiant desperation flashing from my restless eyes, and no one dared to bar my egress. As I emerged from that shop into Regent Street, I felt as exhausted as if I had just bought a grand piano or a suite of furniture. "Really," I said to my wife in conclusion, "if I could have foreseen all the trouble in store for me over buying this little Japanese basket, price 2d, it would have been still reposing with its companions in the corner of that magnificent shop window in Regent Street." She promised to prize it all the more on that account. And now, when I look at that little Japanese basket, my mind wanders back to the farthing's worth of pins I purchased in my old bachelor days.